90 and 101.5 FM.
Newstalk.
Welcome, everyone. It is the Thursday edition of Talkback, the rainy day edition, I guess you might call it. It's sponsored by the Mustard Seed Asian Cafe at Southgate Mall, Kootenai Creek Village, the maintenance-free active adult community in Stevensville, with the best of Western Montana living. Dig It Excavating, where they bring 30 years of excellence to every job. Call 214-4292. Transport Equipment, your headquarters for RV service maintenance and repair, located on Inspiration Drive. And by Bull's Eyewear, where they offer some of the lowest prices in town on contact lenses. See Lynette at 2910 South Reserve. All right, here we are. It is Thursday, and of course, it's been a very eventful week, especially politically here in Montana. Charles Lovell, I believe, earlier this week, I think it was Tuesday, issued a very important decision, striking down the campaign limits and calling them unconstitutional that had been placed on Montana folks who are in politics. Right now, we've got Matthew Monfornton on the line, and Rick Hill, of course, was the gubernatorial candidate 4 years ago. He was unsuccessful, but what was successful was the fact that Jonathan Modell, the political practices commissioner, was able to slap a huge judgment against him. So, first of all, Matthew, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thanks for having me, you guys.
You bet. Now, of course, you have been Mr. Hill's attorney, and if you wouldn't mind just giving us a little history lesson, take us back 4 years as to how all this came about.
Sure. 4 years ago, the first week of October, Judge Lovell struck down Montana's contribution limits. Within a couple of days, the Montana Republican Party contributed $500,000 to Rick Hill's campaign, which brought him at parity with Bullock's campaign. 2 days after that, the Ninth Circuit stayed Judge Lovell's order. So a week after that, Bullock's campaign filed a complaint against Hill with the Commissioner of Political Practices, saying that Rick Hill violated the law when he took that $500,000, even though he did what a federal judge told him he could do. Despite that fact, Montana officials have been harassing Rick and his family for the last 4 years. We've been fighting tooth and nail in court to stop this injustice. Finally, yesterday, Commissioner Modell dismissed these outrageous allegations against Rick after, of course, Commissioner Modell himself got slapped hard by Judge Lovell on Tuesday.
Now, would you please describe when you said Mr. Modell and his staff have harassed Mr. Hill for the last 4 years? In what way did that harassment come?
Well, in the threat of a $1.5 million penalty that Rick Hill potentially faced, because of the fact that under Montana law, if you violate campaign finance law, you're subject to potential triple damages. Well, Rick took $500,000 in October of 2012 when it was lawful for him to do so. They were arguing not only that was unlawful, but that Rick should have to pay out of his own pocket $1.5 million, triple damages, basically. So that's a guillotine that he and his family have been living under for almost 4 years now.
Well, now, how much of that $500,000 was spent during the campaign? Now, the reason I ask that is because was somebody foresighted enough to realize that the state was going to appeal that ruling and to the Ninth Circuit, and I think little did they know how quickly it would have been overturned. So it just seemed like the perfect storm, basically, for Rick Hill. Here's the decision by Lovell. Here is the donation by the Montana Republican Party. Almost the next day, here's the reversal of that decision, and then boom, a lawsuit against Mr. Hill. It just seems like, wow, didn't anybody see that coming?
Well, no, we didn't see it coming because, and I should say someone else had recommended that he take the $500,000. I'm happy to say I didn't make that recommendation
Okay.
Just because politically it was not a wise idea. But legally, he did exactly what he was allowed to do legally. And it gets worse. Once the Ninth Circuit issued that stay, Judge Kathy Seeley in Helena ordered Rick to take down his advertisements for the last 2 weeks of the campaign, which basically crippled his campaign. It was an outrageous unjustified intrusion by a left-wing judge in Helena that basically sunk Rick Hill's campaign. He might have been able to win that election if it wasn't for her meddling. It's just simply outrageous.
I doubt Rick Hill's story is going to go back and change that election, but this story does have the power to change the Office of Political Practices, especially in the next legislative session.
One can certainly hope so.
It seems to me that one of the questions people should be asking is, why did Rick Hill's case sit there so long without being adjudicated by Mr. Modal? I know I've spoken to Mr. Modal many times. He was trying to clean out the backlog of old cases. And it seems to me, if you're not going to take this case and consider it and bring it to trial, it might be because you think you're going to lose at a higher court. And so it's better to just sit there with that sort of Damocles hanging over the Hill family all of this time.
Exactly. That's what made this so outrageous, is he could have and should have disposed of this case back in October of 2012 when it was filed. And instead, like you say, he let it sit over Rick for 4 years. The reason he did that was to try to extort money from Rick. Rick still has approximately $200,000 in his campaign account that's left over from the 2012 election. Commissioner Modal called me last fall and said, look, your client has $1.5 million exposure. He's got a couple of $100,000. Yeah, we know it should go back to the Republican Party where it rightfully belongs, but why don't you consider paying that to me, Commissioner Modal, so that your client doesn't face any jeopardy?
Whoa. Can you quantify that? Can you? Did you have like a recording or anything of him saying those words? Because that sounds like bribery to me.
No, it's extortion, is what it is.
Oh, extortion. Sorry, yeah.
And that's exactly what he did. And I'm unfortunately I didn't have a recording on it. Actually, it's probably just as well that I didn't, because that would be illegal.
Right.
But I'm telling you, that's exactly what he did. Is he tried to extort that money, almost $200,000, from Rick Hill's account that should be going back to the Montana Republican Party. He tried to take that for himself.
Let me ask you this. It seems to me, and we spoke yesterday as well, but so far, and you didn't even talk about extortion when we spoke, but after the break, I'd like you to respond to this question. You've now accused Jonathan Modal of extortion. You've accused him of partisanship in a nonpartisan office. You've accused him of going out of his way to target speech from conservative individuals, unjustly, using the law to prosecute those of opposite opinions. All of these things that you're saying will sound hollow to many people unless they're backed up by real challenge in a court.
I'll be happy to go through with you line by line as far as the allegations I've made.
Okay, all right, we'll do that when we come back. We also have 3 lines open if you want to visit with Matthew Monfornton. Keep in mind, he's only going to be with us for a half an hour because then we have Mark Thane in studio. So if you have a question, don't let it wait. Don't procrastinate. We will be right back. All right. Politics 101, what we're doing right now on Montana Morning. Matthew Monfornton joining us. Now, you are in Bozeman, is that correct, Matthew?
That's correct.
All right. So, here, but we won't hold that against you, though.
Yeah.
Would it help if I said I was a Grizzly fan?
Yeah, I'd be fine, too.
Even though I was lying?
So you're an expat, huh?
Go ahead.
Well, you're a lawyer. I doubt you got that from MSU Bozeman. Let's talk a little bit about the Lovell's decision real quick, and then we'll get on to a potential future lawsuit if that's going to happen or not. But you were talking during the break about the heavy words that Judge Lovell uses when he talked about Jonathan Modal and Rick Hill in his decision this week. Tell us some of the stuff that you thought was especially enlightening or interesting.
Well, what was really nice is that Judge Lovell saw through the garbage that Commissioner Modal and the AG's office was trying to feed him. And he said, and I'm quoting here from the order, it says, the court remains at a loss as to how Commissioner Modal will prove that Hill could be liable for accepting the alleged illegal contribution after, in italics, after the The duly appointed and acting United States District Court with unchallenged jurisdiction in this case declared the contribution limits unconstitutional and unenforceable before, italicized, the Ninth Circuit motions panel stayed this court's order. So in plain English, what Judge Lovell is saying is it's shocking that Modal would try to go after Rick Hill for doing what Judge Lovell said Rick Hill could do.
So does it seem like Judge Lovell's inserting his own personality into this case a little bit? Because he was the 2012 decision, and he was this decision.
The facts. He's interpreting the facts which are plain, that Rick Hill had a right to do what he did, and he was being pursued viciously and maliciously by Commissioner Modal.
If you want to talk about somebody inserting their personality into this whole thing, this Jonathan Modal is all over this. I mean, the moment he could, because I visited with the man, it was like he was brimming over with I can't wait to get after these people. You know what I mean? You come away with it.
He hates conservatives. He hates conservative principles. He hates free speech. And if you listen to him on TV or on radio, he is the most arrogant sounding bureaucrat you can imagine, and it's reflected in the way that he handles his office.
Well, I will say this: I've met more arrogant bureaucrats in my life. I've had Jonathan Modal has been gracious enough to come on. He's done a whole talkback show. He's whenever I call, he's quick to answer. I know other politicians that will not even talk to us.
Right.
And so I got to give him credit for that.
Absolutely.
We do have a call, though, of someone that wants to talk to you, Jonathan.
That's
Matthew.
Yeah, let's get Mike on the line. Mike, you're on. Go ahead.
Yeah, I come in late on this, and I have kind of gathered that they're really ticked off at Modal. And it seems to me he gets involved in a lot of stuff that doesn't make a lot of sense. And you might know where I'm going with it, because the Trapping Association has a lawsuit against Modal, too, for telling flat-out lies about him. And I've got to believe the trappers that lies were told about, because I know these people. I trust them with my life, but I don't know Modal, and he's not the only. He went after Hill. He went after another one, and Modal has a kind of a really checkered past on this town. It looks to me like. But I want to know if he's trying to extort $200,000. Who gets the $200,000? He does, or the government, or what?
That's a very good question, Mike. That the $200,000 is what's left of the $500,000 that was given to his campaign by the Montana Republican Party, and it's Rick Hill's intention to give that money back to the Republican Party where it belongs.
And how does Modal think he's entitled to it, though?
Well, what he was trying to do is he was trying to leverage the risk that Rick Hill faced 6 months ago before we had another good ruling from Judge Lovell that we got last week. He was saying to me and to Rick, hey, look, if things don't go I mean, this was the implied message. If things don't go your way again with Judge Lovell, Rick is looking at $1.5 million in exposure. But maybe if you give me $200,000 right now, we can make this go away. He made that demand knowing that he had a frivolous case and was simply trying to extort Rick based on the fear that Rick might face a $1.5 million penalty.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks for your call.
Appreciate the call.
I have to ask you, Matthew, are you going to take Mr. Modal to court for any of these things? Obviously, you were fighting for your client to not get, hit with this giant fee, but will you, turn the tide and go back towards Jonathan Modal and accuse him of some of the things you're publicly accusing him of on this radio in a courtroom? You still there, Matthew?
Nope, there we go. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Matthew.
Well, what I can tell you is that if you look at what Modal did in the last 24 hours, he reinstated contribution limitations that in some cases are actually lower than the ones that Judge Lovell said were unconstitutional, which smacks of contempt of court. And don't be too surprised if in the very near future that gets brought to Judge Lovell's attention.
What kind of future are we looking at? Like 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 months?
I really can't be more specific.
You shall not know the time or the hour, John.
No, a couple of things. Since I'm looking at history repeating itself, because Lovell made a decision in 2012. The donation came in just a couple of days or weeks later, and then almost, instantaneously, the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court slapped it aside, and then Mr. Model went after Rick Hill. Now, are you expecting the same thing to happen now with, Judge Lovell's decision is a district court decision, and the Ninth U.S. Circuit Court can do exactly the same thing again, right?
They can, but it's very unlikely that will happen because Judge Lovell's order that he issued a couple days ago is frankly much more thorough than the order that was issued 4 years ago. The Ninth Circuit provided guidance last year as to what exactly it needed in terms of factual findings from Judge Lovell, and he has complied with that. I think it's going to be bulletproof on appeal.
Do you think any of these actions will play out in the election cycle this session? I know you're involved politically outside of just defending Rick Hill, so I'm curious, do you think this has broader implications?
Probably not for the primary that's coming up in a few weeks. The one big change in the law is that the limitations on party contributions to candidates have been struck down as entirely unconstitutional. So now political parties can donate as much money as they want to candidates. In reality, that doesn't have any effect on Republican candidates because the Montana Republican Party is essentially broke.
Well, they gave $500,000 4 years ago.
Yeah,
they're waiting for their money back.
They don't have $500,000 this time around, and the problem is conservative contributors have no trust and no faith in the state leadership, and as a result, the state party is suffering tremendously.
I hear there's a $200,000 check in the mail.
Well, that's after my fees are taken off.
Oh, snap.
We're up against a break. I love that. That's great. We'll be right back. There might be $9.95 left when it's all said and done. We'll be right back. We are rapidly running out of time with Matthew Monfornton, the attorney of record for Rick Hill. And go ahead.
Yeah, I had a question for you, Matthew. So obviously Rick Hill's a prominent candidate. $500,000 is a prominent amount of money. But there's got to be, what you're saying is true, there's got to be a lot of other cases where this is popping up. If it is kind of a systematic charge against either the speech of people that disagree with the office or if it's acts of extortion to get money, I mean, you'd think that there'd be more cases of it. So I guess my question for you is, does this go beyond just this Rick Hill case?
But most definitely. Modal has corrupted his office by using it to silence conservatives. And let me give you a few examples before we go off the air. He's litigating 12 cases right now. All of them are against Republicans. He went after Art Whittick a few months ago for doing something that Senator Ed Buttrey did. Both of them used Christian Lafleur for their campaign services, yet Ed Buttrey got a complete pass from Modal because Ed Buttrey later on voted to confirm Modal. That's the kind of system that we have. And same thing with Rick Hill. Rick Hill took the $500,000. Tim Fox took $40,000 during that same period. He got a pass. 2 years ago, the complaint that was filed against Tim Fox was dismissed by Modal, and ever since then, Tim Fox has done Modal's bidding. So, again, that's the kind of system we're dealing with.
How so? How has Tim Fox done Mr. Modal's bidding?
By representing him in court and doing essentially everything that Modal wants. Modal wanted to challenge, for example, the decision by Judge Lovell 2 days ago. He's asking for a stay with Judge Lovell with regard to party contribution limits. Modal's attorneys are going to comply with that because, Fox's attorneys are going to comply with that because Fox owes Modal a favor.
Wait, do you know that they will, or are you just saying that they will out of your expectation?
I have a firm expectation that Fox will represent Modal.
Well, that's his
in
job.
His request for a stay.
No, because
requesting a stay is discretionary.
For example, Fox is not defending the Department of Revenue's decision.
And we're out of time. Matthew, thank you so much. We appreciate you being with us.
Thanks for having me, you guys.
Take care. All right. So we're going to come back. Mark Thane in the studio. We're going to come right back. We have all sorts of other stuff to talk about.
Probably not more extortion.
All right, here we are, and that's John King. Good morning, John.
Hey, good morning again, Peter.
And I'm Peter Christian. Mark Thane joining us here in studio, ladies and gentlemen, the superintendent of School District 1. He's got his flip-flops on. He's got the Hawaiian shirt happening. Summertime, right?
Yeah, I would wish.
He might be the only Missoulian we've interviewed that he regularly wears a tie.
I know.
Sometimes people come for their first appearance on Talkback with a tie, and then they realize it's just a joke, and they go home and they put on something comfortable. But Mark is a dedicated man.
There we go. I did read an article on the internet that ties will be obsolete within the next 10 years. But
really,
I've always worn one, so it's hard to break the habit.
If you get in a fight with a ninja, you're out. I mean,
there we go.
It's dangerous. Although, since you're here, I want to answer one of the eternal questions I've had about school officials, and specifically the superintendent. What do you do in the summer?
Well, there are a number of things that need to occur in the summer, and we're at that point in the year where we practice triage, those things that need to get done while the students are still in session. Then next on the list would be those things that need to be done while we still have access to staff that might be 10-month staff. And then finally, all those things that we have put on the to-do list for the summer, like review and revision of all the board policies. We, of course, have a number of projects with the bond issue that will actually commence construction this summer, and there's a lot of detail work there. There's still an awful lot of planning that occurs for next school year. We'll still be working with parents and community members on issues and concerns that they have specific to their children. We do a lot of hiring, a lot of work through the HR office. There's plenty of work to be done in the summer.
So you won't be gallivanting around England like a hoity-toity radio host.
No, I would like to be, but unfortunately that won't happen.
Hoity-toity? Hoity-toity?
Hoity-toity.
Wow, I haven't heard that one for a long time. I thought I was old. Anyway.
There you go. So nice job last night, Peter, with Special Olympics opening ceremonies. We appreciate not only you, but all the volunteers that support those students and families with special needs. It's really a great opportunity to have them all in Missoula and to showcase their abilities. And the hundreds of dedicated volunteers, as well as the thousands of people that came out to support them in the opening ceremonies, I think is really a remarkable commentary about our community.
A couple of things happened last night. First of all, the first thing was that for the first time ever, the opening ceremonies were held outside.
Before the thunder and lightning.
Right, and not only that, but it was announced to the crowd by Chuck Mays, who works for the University of Montana. He's actually my boss, is the PA guy. He said, take a good look at GrizVision, because the video that was showing up there is the last thing that's ever going to play on GrizVision. They are tearing it down today.
Really?
Yes, for a brand new one to be installed this summer to be ready for the fall football season.
Wow.
New and improved.
Woo-hoo! Very cool.
I like it. I asked him if I could take it and put it in my living room. He said no.
Yeah, I understand there's a new sound system, too. So we'll expect that everybody up the Rattlesnake will be able to hear you yell "First Down, Montana."
Yeah, exactly. It'll be fun.
Yeah, that would have been pretty much chaos if they had the thunder and lightning with the no umbrella rule earlier on in the event.
Well, but anyway, so now tell me what now you the Missoula County Public Schools has a lot to do with Special Olympics, right?
Well, Special Olympics, of course, is a state entity, and the state games anyway. But we do have a number of our staff members that actually mentor and coach athletes throughout the year in preparation for the games. It is really part of a well-rounded education for those students. It's certainly important that we help them develop their academic potential, but the social development, the kind of skills that they develop through the competition and through participation in Special Olympics really translate well into those kind of skills that we would want to see them take to the workforce or to post high school opportunities. So it is critical. A lot of people engaged. We had a couple members of our central office team that were very involved in the planning of the state games, and just a real wonderful outreach.
Now, a couple of things that I just want to do a little housekeeping. There was a report in the Missoulian a week or so ago that the final report finally came back about the Hellgate breach. Can you kind of cover that for us?
Sure, and actually the Missoulian article was focused on the fact that they had a third-party evaluator actually look at the equipment to ascertain just exactly what happened and verified essentially that what occurred was the result of human error.
Yeah.
It wasn't a piece of malware or it wasn't an outside attack on the computers. In addition to that,
it was a mistake.
That's right. In addition to that, we had, at the time the breach occurred, done a self-disclosure to the Family Privacy Committee of the U.S. Department of Education, and they have followed up with a phone call just to verify that all that we lined out in the letter we had actually addressed. We had offered a number of items that we felt it was important for us to address from a self-correction standpoint, and we haven't gotten anything back in writing from them, but they basically at that point in time said it looks like you fulfilled all those obligations with regard to reporting, with regard to change in policy and procedure, and as far as they were concerned, it looked like the book was closed.
Wow. We have a question on Facebook for you. It's from Elena. She says, what is Mr. Thane's reaction to Obama's extortion letter regarding toilets? To clarify, the letter, this is federal recommendations on transgender toilet use in public schools.
Certainly. And
You and I talked about this a couple months ago.
we've talked about it previously, and this is an issue that not only has impacted schools, but has been something that's been discussed by municipalities nationally over the last few years. There have been a number of court cases that have proceeded over the years, and that has led to the development of some Dear Colleague letters that have really influenced the shaping of policy and procedure. We, about a year ago, June of 2015, the MCPS school board updated its policy based on what we were hearing from not only the courts and the Ninth Circuit in particular, but also from federal agencies. And the bottom line for us is this. Number one, if you look at any of our restroom facilities, regardless of what gender restroom they're assigned to, we don't have a high degree of privacy. As we reconfigure restrooms, we want to create situations where all students have the maximum privacy. And I think another thing that we want to contemplate is creating, as you may see in other public facilities, the family-type bathroom, which might be a one-fixture bathroom that someone could enter and could lock the door from the inside so that they can have their own high degree of privacy.
Wouldn't several of those type of facilities cost a lot more?
Well, we're in a fortunate position in that we're going through our facility planning and bond projects right now, so we may have some opportunities there. The one thing I would say with regard to the transgender issue is, number one, we want to create a safe, healthy, non-discriminatory environment for all students. And I think in doing so, we want to respect the privacy of all students. This federal directive is not going to suddenly bring people out of the woodwork who are making specific requests with regard to restrooms. Our own experience, and I think the experience you would hear about nationally, is that most of the time when there's a student that's dealing with a gender identification issue, as they approach the school, they're seeking privacy options for themselves. It's a very uncomfortable situation. It's not a situation where, at least most of the time, somebody's taking a politically active stand and, broadcasting what they're doing in terms of gender identification or transgendering. And so we will just continue to work with families if they notify us of such issues on individual plans to accommodate the privacy of that student as well as the other students. But I don't anticipate it being a big change in practice for us.
Okay, we're going to come right back. We have all four lines open. If you want to visit with Mark Thane, give us a call, 721-1290, and we'll be right back. And we are back on Talk Back. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, before we go to callers, one real quick question on the last topic. Did the letter from the federal government on the bathroom use, is that going to change some of the design plans? You had kind of hinted that it might, but are we going to go back and change some of the design plans to change the bathroom layout for sure?
No, not necessarily. I don't think the letter in and of itself has that impact.
Did you get that letter?
I did get it,
okay.
But it doesn't come directly from Department of Ed. It comes on a listserv.
He didn't call on the red
electronic-
telephone?
No, he didn't.
He didn't send up the bat
Didn't
signal
push the
for
special
you?
button. But, Again, the letter wouldn't compel us to change anything in terms of our restroom structure, but I just think in 2016 we need to consider whether or not we are providing the maximum level of privacy in all our restrooms, and we have an opportunity now as we're doing some remodels in the buildings to consider that, and certainly, again, regardless of students and gender issue, you see in many public places now a family type restroom because there are parents who might have to take a child of one gender or another in, or want to have a diaper changing station. So that's become an expectation that there's a family type restroom, and I think we as a public facility probably need to think along those lines too.
With 3 kids, I like the family style restrooms because you got 3. You either got to leave your daughter out in the hallway or drag her in there with you.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna let's get to the phone. Joe, you're on Talkback with Mark Thane. Hi.
Hi, Mark. I'm just curious if you have any insights on what I guess millennials and the interest in Bernie Sanders and socialism, and Rush Limbaugh has made the argument that it has to do with our school system. He calls it schools, of course, but and I didn't mean to be provocative, but anyway, if you have any insights on that, I'd be interested because I'm very curious about that myself.
Thanks for your accidentally provocative question.
I don't know that I have any strong feelings about that. I know that there are some out there who would claim that there's social engineering, et cetera, that happens with regard to schools. But I would argue that schools really reflect, to a large degree, community values, and that occurs because school boards are elected by the public to represent the interest of the public. It's a non-compensated position. They establish our policies. They review the curricula that we adopt. And so there has been a strong push nationally for more than a century for local control of schools, and I think that's the reason. So to the degree that Rush would make the argument about schools and them being responsible for the rise of one politician or another, or one ideology or another, I don't know that I would buy into that. I would just simply say that each and every community's values are likely, at least to a large degree, reflected in their schools.
Let's talk about the school boards here in Missoula, because we recently had an election,
Certainly.
of which tens of people participated in.
I think that's pretty close to accurate.
I think the actual less than 15% turnout.
Yeah, it was about 15%. That's a little bit of a misnomer because there were, I shouldn't try and say this off the top of my head, but I believe about 10,000 ballots that were undeliverable. So people who were either moved and not updated addresses, et cetera. So if you look at only the deliverable ballots, the turnout was roughly 25%, but it's certainly not an overwhelming majority of the people casting their votes.
And even those, including my family, that tried to participate in that, it was very difficult to make an educated vote on that.
Sure. There was a brief bio of each candidate in the Missoulian at one point in time, but there was not really an active campaign. So I can't tell you, even though I couldn't respond, I can't tell you the number of times people would call me or ask me, give me some feedback on the candidates. And that's certainly not my role. That's more the public role, and it's the obligation of the candidate to get the word out about his or her positions.
I guess the school board folks are just not into mudslinging. My opponent is,
Thank heavens. Yeah. No, and we're really fortunate. We have great community members to step up and take on a task that involves a great deal of time and energy. It's very personal to families and to the community, and it's not always glamorous, but they do yeoman's work.
Do you think that election should have been held on the general ballot with the other? Because we have basically two elections right next to each other, one of which nobody knows anything about, and one of which is one of the most attended turnouts in all of politics.
Yeah, and that's something that I think the public largely misunderstands, and part of the problem is statutorily we're required to run those school elections in May. Part of the rationale for that is most of the time there might be financial implications in that election, mill levies or those kinds of things, and you need to have that done before the budget year begins July 1. So if you push it back to the June election and you don't know what your finances are, it's really difficult in 3 weeks to have a budget picture put together.
Okay, we're going to take a break, and we have Jeannie and Marilyn, and 2 lines open at 721-1290. This is Talkback. Mark Thane in studio. We'll be right back. Boom, 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 boom. You know, I don't mean to bang our own drum too terribly loud, but Talkback has been nominated as a radio program of the year by the Montana Broadcasters Association and the E.B. Craney Awards, which are coming up next month at Big Sky. And guess who our co-finalist is?
Our neighbors next door.
Yeah, the knuckleheads next door. Billy, no, they're wonderful. Billy and Shireen. So whoever wins will buy drinks.
By the way, Peter Christian's newscast nominated as well for the 18 millionth time.
Okay,
so, good job, Peter.
And John King's news stories was nominated for Story of the Year. So there we go. We're rocking. There you go. Absolutely, yeah. So you didn't bow when you came in.
Yeah, really, all genuflect.
Don't worry. About the same number of people compete for these awards as vote in the teacher candidates, or the teacher board candidates.
All right, let's get to the phones. Jeannie, you are on. Hold on, just a second. Jeannie, you're on Talkback. Hi.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning, Jeannie.
As you know, I'm a proponent of smaller neighborhood schools. I experienced the smaller schools while growing up in Missoula in the 60s. So I'm pretty old, but I still remember
I got you beat, sweetheart. Go ahead.
And anyway, I'd like to see, the kids today in Missoula experience these schools. Research shows that busing costs are much less when you have neighborhood schools, and I understand the concern for 21st century schools. However, it may behoove the district to look into creating the smaller schools again. And I thought I'd bring this issue up again and ask if Mark received any figures from the busing coordinator to share with the listeners. I talked to the secretary yesterday about that. But in closing, a quote from a study, Dollars and Cents, the cost-effectiveness of small schools, concerning busing, is from page 13 and reads, students who spend less time on the bus are able to spend more time with family and friends in community activities and even homework. And also, one more little factoid before I let you go. Each school day in the United States, about 400,000 buses travel over 21 million miles. So anyway, thank you.
Okay, there you go. So a plethora of things there, Mark. So
thank you. And Jeannie, I actually, maybe a couple days ago, started looking at my calendar and saw Talkback Thursday, and I thought, I got to get the busing costs. So I did contact our business office, and unfortunately it's because I was so late in making that request that I don't have the full figures for you. And part of the reason for that is that it's increasingly complex to disaggregate the data. Here are a couple examples of why that is. We serve a fair number of families that qualify under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Act. Essentially, they're considered families in transition.
That's a federal act?
That's a federal act. And so if a student is considered homeless, they may be in temporary housing. That housing may change multiple times over the course of a school year. But there's a provision in federal statute that says those students will have the right to remain in the school that was their home school. And we as a district are obligated to transport them. So, for example, we may have a student that attends one of our South Side schools. They become a homeless family or a family in transition. They may get some temporary housing in the Lower Rattlesnake or in a motel somewhere. We actually send a bus out and pick those students up each day, essentially like an individual contract, and transport them to the school that was their home school so that they don't go through multiple transitions in a year, because we recognize those transitions cause significant academic harm.
We talked about this just the other day with the people from Watson's. They talked about how they have
Another
a school bus for people all over town.
You bet. And we deliver the students from some of our group homes and shelters to a variety of different schools. They don't all go to the school within the neighborhood where that facility is located. So that's one complicating factor. We also have a number of students, about nearly 10% of our student enrollment, that have individualized education plans, students with an identified disability. One of the considerations when you develop an IEP for a student, an individualized education plan, is whether or not transportation is necessary either to get to a specialized program in a building or because of either mobility issues or cognitive issues that require specialized and individualized transportation. So we transport a number of kids across the district because of special education considerations. Then obviously we have the school buses that just run from neighborhoods to schools. And I think that's what you're getting at with regard to your question. So I've asked the business office to actually go through, sort through all those account codes and aggregate the data so that I can respond to you. And as I said, I was late in making that request, so it'll probably be next month before I have the figures for you. In general terms, I would also say that we do value neighborhood schools. And I know this has been something that you've been concerned about for a long time, Jeannie, and frequently remind me of your feelings about neighborhood schools. As we contemplate building a new Cold Spring school, one of the things that's been really important to us is that we actually try and locate that school in the neighborhood where the vast majority of the students live, which is in the Linda Vista area. So we continue to actively negotiate on a piece of property out there. We hope to actually be able to locate that school in a walkable, bikeable location to serve those hundreds of kids in Linda Vista.
So let me ask you this. With Cold Springs, the two schools that are priorities are Lowell and Franklin.
That's correct.
So now the building plans for the other schools, are they on the back burner or are they
not on the back burner?
Okay.
We actually have about 13 of those projects in design development and out to bid in various stages. We have opened bids on Paxson in its addition and remodel, and we'll start that construction immediately this summer. Tonight, we open bids on Rattlesnake for its additions and remodeling, and we'll do largely that work this summer. School ends June 10th. June 11th, which is a Saturday, the moving company will actually arrive at both Lowell and Franklin to begin clearing the building, and we'll immediately begin those two construction projects. We have roofing projects at Meadow Hill, Washington, Hellgate, Big Sky. We have a significant addition and renovation at Sealy Swan High School. We have a number of projects going on, and nothing's on the back burner right now. The question is, how much capacity do we have to manage projects, and what capacity does the local building trades really have to take on these projects at one time? I was in a meeting earlier this week, and the number keeps growing, but a local engineer said that there are nearly $1 billion worth of construction projects on the docket in Missoula at present. There was a lot of capacity that wasn't addressed during the recession, and a lot of people are building a lot of buildings right now.
Sure. There's 5 hotels that mythically will appear sometime in the near future.
There you go.
And all of them will need bathrooms and stuff. So good luck getting a plumber, all right? So we're going to come right. You guys do have a plumber, right?
We do.
Okay. What's that?
Let's hope.
Let's hope. All right, so we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back on Talkback. Mark Thane joining us here in studio, and once again, he has reached rock star status because all 4 of our lines are full. So everybody wants to talk with you. So let's start with Marilyn. Marilyn, first of all, thank you for holding. You're on. Oh, there we go. Got it. So go ahead, Marilyn.
Please
sorry.
start over. He had the volume down.
Go ahead, please.
Oh, okay. Recently, the Lolo school here had a levy on the ballot, and they were requesting money for reading and for a nurse. And when I saw that, I'm like, why shouldn't reading be a first priority when they are allocating money for the school? And it just struck me as when local and state and federal government want money, or they have wants that they want to spend our tax dollars on, that they have their priorities, and then the priorities that are the things that they are required by law or constitution to spend the money on, they don't, and then they're like desperate, and all of a sudden, we got to pass this to whatever, get some more money so we can do the main thing. So I guess I don't know if you have anything to do with the Lolo school, but
he doesn't.
that levy came down to defeat by just a few votes, and I was one of the against votes because I thought, for God's sake, the money first priority should be going to reading.
Okay, thanks, Marilyn.
I will just respond in general terms because, as John said, Lolo is not part of our elementary school district. But the state funding formula is really an interesting animal. The Montana Constitution guarantees the equity of opportunity for education. And essentially, what's happened because of that is that locals, school districts have operated with some budget caps and only allowed certain opportunities to exceed those caps and in a limited form, because if one community like the Missoula community is able to pass a large mill levy and augment their budgets and a school like Lolo is not, then it creates a inherently unequal opportunity to education. So the concern I would express is that if Lolo is at all similar to Missoula, about 90% of our budget goes to salary and benefits. And that makes sense. We're a service-related industry. We're people-based. But that leaves only 10% of the budget to pay the heat, the lights, to maybe buy some textbooks. If you want to have
the building from falling down around
if
your
you want
ears,
ancillary services like nursing services, you got to find a revenue stream for that. So Lolo, I think, attempted to be very specific and tell the community, here are some things that we would like to have. They're not necessarily required by accreditation standards, for example, nursing services. And I suspect they're probably saying when they talk about reading, although I don't know this for a fact, that maybe they don't have latitude in their budget to buy new curricular materials. So they went to the public and said, here are our needs, and you as public have the opportunity to pass judgment on those. And it's a difficult situation for a school district to be in. I think we all attempt to be good stewards of the public funds and certainly the public trust. But, we don't have the latitude like many entities of just going out and raising the money and permissively taxing. We go before the voters and have to have your permission to add those taxes.
Have you ever read the short story Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut?
Yes, long time ago. That was back in high school days.
In this short story, there's these dancers, and to make sure everybody's equal, the dancers that are exceptionally good at dancing have to wear chains and be weighed down so that they are equal with the other dancers in the performance. Sometimes I feel like our schools have chains.
Sometimes I would argue that with the budgets we do.
Okay, let's get Chuck on the line. Chuck, first of all, thank you for holding. You're on Talkback. Go ahead.
Really good show, and I've got an odd statement and question to make. But the Democrats and Republicans learned this year that canned, polished responses, no matter how well they're done, don't sell anymore. The unusual does, and that's going to happen with the school system. The school system does not reflect the community. It is just there as a giant mechanism that is too big for the community to say what they really want anymore. And I would encourage your guests not to use canned statements that we reflect the will of the people. That's just become so standardized, and it doesn't work anymore with the millennium.
Well, hold on, Chuck. Hold on. What would you like him to say?
Well, he's going to have to become more. What is the school? What does the school do? Let me give an example.
Okay.
I'm a business person in the community. So, of course, we have a small business class in our high schools. Yes or no?
Yes.
Do you?
Yes, the Hellgate High School Finance Academy. They teach...
Hellgate High School does, but not Sentinel High School.
They have business courses also. It's just not the Finance Academy.
Doesn't Sentinel have DECA?
Sure. Sentinel actually has the largest DECA organization in the state of Montana.
Yeah.
Okay. And what I'm trying to say is no one really knows what the school systems are doing anymore. The woman called in about why is reading having to be an extra class?
Well, I mean, Mark just answered. Apparently Mark knew.
He did, but that's not known by the community.
Well, that's why he's on Talkback.
Yo, boy.
And now you do
Trying
know.
to get the word out.
And now you do know. Chuck, thanks for the call.
Yeah, you guys got me there.
I know. Thanks for the call. Okay, we're over. I'm sorry. We're overdue for a break. So Ryan, Chris, and Rick, and we have a line open, 721-1290. You're here every month, right? I mean, that's the whole
That's
idea.
right.
Okay, we'll be right back. Hey, we're back. And this is Talkback. John King's over there. I'm Peter Christian. Joining us in studio, we have the fabulous Mark Thane. I thought that way you're not just you're just reciting stuff.
Run of the mill.
You could be fabulous.
The authoritative Mark Thane.
There we go.
Let's get back to the phones. Okay, Ryan, you're up. Hi.
So, great show, guys. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I was just going to go back to the school's Christian ideology. I got home Monday night, and my kids were forced to watch the Bernie talk that he had in Missoula in art class. Sixth graders.
Now, was there an opt-out factor there if they didn't want to watch it?
Well, they just got home, and some of the kids complained, and the teacher just said, "Shut it."
In an art class?
In art class.
May I ask what school this was?
It's Hellgate Elementary.
Hellgate Elementary. Well, that's not Mark's deal.
I can see Mark wiping his forehead there.
No, but I would also say that.
Thanks for the call.
I do know that some of our students viewed the rally live, and some probably watched it live stream. And I would suggest that one of the important things we do is talk about current events and help students to understand how they make reasoned decisions and to listen to a variety of viewpoints and be able to critically analyze what's being said and what the long-term implications might be. So I think there's educational value in that, regardless of what party, ideology, et cetera, the person represents. But I do think you need to be fair and balanced in that approach. And if, in fact, we're going to help students make those informed decisions, they need to understand that there are a variety of perspectives that come into play.
Yeah, and I still question the art class thing, right?
Well,
I could totally see that in a history class or a social studies class or something like that. But also, with these candidates these days, you may want to record so you can edit anything.
We need the 5-second lag time.
Exactly.
3. Okay, we're gonna let's take another call. This is Chris. Make sure I got the right button there. Chris, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Hello, Mark. I've talked to teachers who like middle schools and those who do not like them. I wondered if you could just draw out the advantages and disadvantages of middle schools.
Thank you, Chris. That's an excellent question. There are a couple of things that
come
into
because it used
play.
to be junior high, right?
Well, yes, and the models vary slightly, but I think the most important thing about middle schools is there is a bit of an economy of scale that comes into play. And when you get particularly to 7th and 8th grade, but also to 6th grade, you start looking at career and technical education type courses, elective courses that are not part of the K through 5 system. So when you start introducing keyboarding or the pre-engineering courses or any number of those, family and consumer science, business education, the financial literacy, you can't replicate that in 12 different schools if you have only, say, 2 8th grade classes and 2 7th grade classes, or else you're putting staff behind the windshield of a car to travel building to building in order to render that instruction. But if you have all those kids on one site, you can bring together a full-time staff member to teach those various topics. For example, with art education, we don't have full-time art teachers in our K-5 buildings. We do have full-time art teachers in our middle schools, and kids can take art as a regular class rotation, whereas in an elementary, it's once every 4 weeks time with the art specialist, for example. The same's true with our music education programs, the bands and the orchestras in particular. We do have band and orchestra at 5th grade, but those teachers travel building to building, spend a lot of time behind the windshield. When you get to middle school, you have enough students participating in those programs that, again, you have the economy of scale. I also think that developmentally there's a significant difference between the kids in the early primary grades and those that are in the upper middle school grades. And I think that if you look at the social emotional needs of students, it's probably a good place to make a natural break in terms of school configuration. And I say all this recognizing that in a largely rural state like Montana, there are a lot of places where K-8 or K-12 are all in a single facility or on a single site, and they make it work through accommodation. So I don't know that there's a right or a wrong answer. I do, again, believe that there are efficiencies that are gained, just, again, economy of scale, bringing those kids together.
And I know in some smaller communities where the school is all, whether it's primary, it's secondary, and then high school, are all pretty much in one campus or one location, there's a sense of family and togetherness there.
There certainly is. And, going back to my experience as a building principal, we used to have buddy classes. So fifth grade classes might pair with kindergarten classes and sit with the students to read and listen to them read and those kinds of things. And there's a great deal of value with that. And I think the same could be argued that with 7th and 8th graders, for example, that might be in a middle school, that exposure to primary kids would be good. Again, when you get to playgrounds and lunchrooms and whatever else, the type of activity is different. I think the social dynamic's different. So, again, it makes some sense. But I know that you could argue pros and cons on both sides.
Okay, we're up against the break. Go ahead, John.
I'll ask, since we were on the topic of different models for schools. This last week up in Libby, Governor Bullock and Denise Juneau were there opening up about Montana's first charter school.
Correct.
I know there's public charter school options out there now on the table. Is it something you've considered in Missoula? We've tried to specialize our high schools, at least, in many different ways, and that seems like an avenue to do that.
Let's hang on to that. Afterwards, it's just a 1-minute timeout. And, Rick, we're going to get your call on, too, and we have 3 lines open for the next 8 minutes. Mark Thane's going to be here. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. 721-1290. I did have a suggestion for Mark. You should stop speaking in complete sentences and using, college vocabulary, because I think that might throw some people off. I'm being complimentary to you, but anyway.
Well, I won't try and sound too canned. John just asked the question about Libby and Lincoln County and the charter school, and Montana does have statute that allows districts to consider charter school, and there are some reasons you might want to consider that. You might want some flexibility with regard to accreditation standards and some of the requirements that you put forth. The proposal that was supported in Libby was largely a career in technical education, automotive, hands-on. So they're looking for some opportunity to craft a proposal that would be supported by the state that still meets some important standards with regard to rigor, but doesn't tie their hands with regard to all accreditation standards. We have had some very initial conversations about that and whether or not such a model would serve us in Missoula at all. There are some places where I could see it might be an application, for example, the Willard Alternative High School program. We might want to look at whether or not a charter school model and some flexibility with regard to the amount of seat time that's required in each content area versus the opportunity for greater exploration of internships, apprenticeships, etc. might be good for not only those students, but students in our other high schools. And that might be a model that then would attract broader spectrum of broader perspective. See, broader spectrum of students
LOL.
to seek an alternative program.
He may have just cast a Harry Potter spell.
There we go. He
Perspectum Patronus.
It's Peter's fault.
Let's go to the phones.
All right, we have a caller. Rick, hold on. I'm going to get this right. Rick, good morning. You're on Talkback. Hi.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
I guess I just wanted to couple things here. Is I remember when the Montana Lottery came on board, and they were allowed all these gambling machines in the bars, and it was touted as, boy, what it's going to do for school funding. That money
was supposed to be for teacher retirement at the outset. It was teacher retirement, and then now it's in the general fund.
Oh, yeah. I guess that's one problem I have, and the second is administration. I mean, when you look at why can't we combine a lot of these schools? And then I guess what really irritates me is when I watch something on the university system all the time, and there's always an assistant talking. I mean, when I'm gone from work, I don't have an assistant to back me up. It just kind of irks me. I just think that a lot of this you could go through colleges and the schools and cut some of the administration. I mean, I think we're heavy in it. That's just my comment. So,
okay.
Thanks.
So how much of that is mandated?
It is mandated by accreditation standards, actually. So in each of our 9 elementary schools, we have a single administrator. We have a principal. We have no assistant principals, anything like that. When we get to the middle schools, because of the size of the middle schools, we do have an assistant principal in each of our 3 middle schools. And when we get to the high schools, we do have 2 assistant principals. And again, it's because of their size, approximately 1,200 students in those schools.
No, you also have district.
We do have some district. I'm an example, a district level administrator. One of the things that happens each year when we undergo our audit, They do a comparative analysis of how much of our budget is spent on administration, teaching, et cetera. And they not only look at us internally, but they look at a comparison of all the other AA districts, in this case, in the state, and see where we sit. And our figure is about 9% is dedicated to administration, administrative services, which is very much in line with what we see across the state. Generally, you see 8 to 10%. You see that consistency across the state because, just like Missoula, everybody else in the state is responding to accreditation standards. So generally that follows pretty closely what you would see from one district to the next. I hear what you're saying, and I think part of it is a failure on our part to communicate well what it is each of these people are responsible to do. And it's easy to sit back and say, wow, it looks like there are a lot of administrators, and without an understanding, for example, of what's entailed in administration of a special education program or the Title I program or administration of grants like the Perkins Grant or the state forward funding. It might be easy to say, okay, let's cut out an administrator, but somebody's got to do that work.
It's also one of those jobs that you never get a bunch of applause for doing it right. But when you send that email that does the wrong attachment, everybody knows.
Well, I always, would use the analogy of house cleaning. People don't notice when your house is clean. They notice when you haven't cleaned your house. And I think the same is with administration. When things are going along well, nobody notices. It's when something doesn't go well, that's when people notice.
All right. We have about a minute and a half. Let's see if we can get one more caller in. Now, people are starting to call in now. See,
sure.
Yeah, you're about ready to go.
I stumbled here.
All right, let's get Sue on the line. Sue, real quickly. Hi, what's on your mind?
Good morning.
Yeah. Good morning, Mark. I just wanted a big congratulations to the principal and vice principal selections at Hellgate. I think that the change will be really good for the school, especially the younger, energetic fellows that are going to be coming here. I'm not going to be at Hellgate anymore after June 4th, but I still really care about the quality. And
well, we can always flunk your daughter if you'd like. No, that would
always what?
We'd always flunk your daughter if you would like to send.
No,
just kidding.
Well, first, congratulations on the upcoming graduation, and I would also say, as a Hellgate alum, Hellgate's near and dear to my heart too, and I'm really excited about the administrative team that we're putting together at Hellgate, and we've been very fortunate as we've had openings this year. We have had very high quality candidates.
Thanks, Sue.
That's neat.
We're out of time. So, so people want to contact your office. How do we do that?
728-2400.
Good deal. Ask for Superintendent Mark Thane. Tomorrow, of course, catching the big ones from 8 until 9. And I believe
Open phones.
Open phones. Wow. From 9 until 10 on this almost award-winning program.
Well, we've at least got second place.
Yes. Yeah, we, at the very least, we're second place. So you can believe that. All right. Have a great day and stay dry, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow morning.